Welcome to another session of the Educational AD, Best Practices for School-Based Athletic Directors and Coaches. Hey, welcome back everyone to the Educational Athletic Director podcast. Our guest today is Kiesha Brown. Kiesha's a certified athletic administrator, and she's currently the assistant AD at the Galloway School in Atlanta. She also has a tremendous background in professional sports, and she's also a very successful business entrepreneur. So Kiesha, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jake. I really appreciate it.
Oh, hey, definitely our pleasure. Well, as you know, the life of an AD is very busy, so we're going to jump right into things. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So tell us a little bit about where you grew up, where you went to school, and how you got started in athletics.
Well, I am an original Georgia Peach, as they would say, born and raised here in Atlanta, Georgia. I actually went to two high schools, went to Mays High School, which is an APS school in Atlanta, and I ended up transferring to Woodward Academy my junior and my senior year. So I'm a graduate of Woodward Academy. And then I got a basketball scholarship to play for the University of Georgia. And I guess I'll say before that, after I left, let me back up. As I leave high school, heading into college, I was awarded the National Player of the Year alongside Kobe Bryant. So it's one of the two gifts that I'm very, very humbled and to receive and to talk about every time we get into that conversation. So he and I, we met super early. We were 16, 17 years old, going through that whole press junket of being the quote unquote best player in the nation in 1996. So whereas he went pro, I went to the University of Georgia and I actually spent 5 years there. I was injured 8 games into my college year and I had a torn ACL. And during my recovery of my torn ACL, I actually had a fracture in my knee. So all that just caused me to be non-weight bearing for some time. So in doing that, I just really got a chance to learn, the nuances of what it takes just to be an athlete, an all-around athlete. So I was at Georgia for 5 years, and after being at Georgia for 5 years, the WNBA had just established itself in 1996. So it was out for about 4 years at that time. And I said, why not? I'm gonna give it a shot. So I talked to Coach Landers, and he made a phone call for me to the WNBA office. And at the time they were doing combines, and I got invited to the combine. I did not get drafted, which a lot of people don't realize. I was not drafted coming out of college. And so I had to go into a free agency camp and try it out with the LA Sparks. So I didn't make my first team. I actually got cut from the LA Sparks and went overseas. So my professional basketball started overseas in Zaragoza, Spain. From there, you kind of fast forward 10 years. I played in about 7 different countries, including Spain, France, Czech Republic, Israel, Russia, and I know I'm missing one right now. It's not coming to me. And then about 8 years in the WNBA with DC, New York, Houston, LA, Tulsa, Connecticut, and then Chicago on paper. So I played in WNBA, or just my incompletion, I played for 11 years professional basketball before I just had the opportunity to sit down and I would say birth my new career. For a lot of professional athletes, it's always a struggle of finding work when you're off the court. And they say normally it takes a year or more to find work. Well, I wanted to do it in 9 or 10 months. So that's why I say I had to rebirth my career and finding the opportunity. I knew I love kids and I love the school calendar as it presents itself. It was a win-win situation. So it was finding the right fit at Galloway, and I got the opportunity to be at Galloway, and the AD at the time, Jim Hillary, he took a risk with me, and he made me assistant athletic director. And now I'm actually walking into my 3rd year as athletic director for K through 8.
Well, I want to get to that in just a second, but going back to your basketball career, what a great experience coming out of college, being able to travel the world and then come back to the United States. I know you won a championship with France. Um, what would be, let's say, your top two experiences, either playing or otherwise, from that whole period of being a professional athlete?
Let me see. My top two experiences, I definitely can say, 10 years overseas and then finally winning a league championship with the French team was really something you can hold high, because essentially it was my only championship in my whole professional career. I've made the playoffs, and you go in and play in certain tournaments that they had professionally over there, but that was definitely by far one of the I was at the peak of my career and being able to win that championship. And I say probably the second biggest takeaway with all that is just the culture and being able to adjust. Obviously in this world right now, we're pivoting big time, but just being able to adjust and not taking things as, probably hard to say, but more or less gathering information, understanding what's there before we make sound decisions, like, not making emotional decisions, because a lot of times conflict comes out of miscommunication. And so, being able to, I'm pretty fluent in Spanish. I spent 6 years in Spain. So I was able to basically do a lot of altering of my contracts or whatever once I got to Spain, because I was just able to have those conversations with the general managers and the owners.
Okay. Again, tremendous tools to have. All right. You landed at Galloway. What was let's say, the athletic culture there for a student athlete when you arrived, and has it changed, and have you had an impact on that?
Oh man. So the culture at Galloway historically right now was known as a very artistic school, very big in theater, liberal arts. And so there was always that need or that nudge to get athletics really going to fit the stage, if you will, of the liberal arts program there at Galloway. And so there was an opening for the varsity girls basketball job. And so, as Jim Hillary and I talked, he wanted to be able to catapult a sport. And, he thought that at the time, and I'm glad he did, that I was the best fit for the job, just to be able to catapult women's basketball at Galloway. And so actually Jim Hillary left and we had another AD come in, and he's a basketball junkie. So it worked this way out where we just kept trying to just build the overall athletics program as a whole, but also sell the community on it's more than just basketball. We're trying to build baseball, trying to build volleyball, trying to build all these sports equally so that we can have a dominant sports program and it not just be one sport. And so a lot of the challenges is being able to find coaches that are going to be there consistently enough to see the rough patches for the beautiful flowers in the end. And so, our challenge is being able to keep coaches near to us that can get that type of relationship with the student athletes for them to be able to have that. So that's the biggest thing that we work on.
We are very blessed in my school in Tallahassee, McClay. Almost every single one of our varsity head coaches, our program leaders, teaches or works at the school. So they're there every day. They see the kids. How do you work to develop that sort of system at Galloway?
Well, every athletic department, every school has this. You have your wish list and you have your asks. And so, I've been saying this because we have 3 really good sports now. Well, 4. So we have girls basketball, boys basketball, cross country, and track and field. And cross country and track and field are headed by the same coach. And those sports are successful is because the coaches are there. And so they see the kids more than just 2 hours a day during practice. They can kind of get the pulse of what the school is going through. And, every year my ask is we have to get teacher coaches in that are willing to teach and spend that extra 3 or 4 hours, in the afternoon of being able to build a program, be close to a program, and willing to see it through and make it their own.
Let's talk a little bit about COVID. It's been around all spring. It's hanging around this summer and into the fall. Um, and again, our states, your state, Georgia, my state, Florida, approach athletics a little bit differently. In Florida, our state association does not regulate summer activities. In Georgia, your association does. In Florida, we're calling it the Wild West. What's happening in my area in the Panhandle, which is closer to you than it is to the other end of my state, Miami-Dade, South Florida, they're operating completely differently. So we understand that there's no one size fits all, but what are some things that y'all did at Galloway this spring in response to COVID with your athletes, your coaches, and what are you doing right now as far as summer conditioning? And again, just laser focus on Galloway. What are you anticipating doing this fall?
Well, in the spring, our leadership team that I'm included on, we were having 7 a.m. 6:30 meetings when COVID basically touched down in the southeastern region. And so, it became real. And obviously it's one thing for it to touch base in Washington State. It's another thing to matriculate over to the southeastern region and how everybody's going to go about doing this. And so, from the beginning, you try to collaborate with partner schools, with other county schools. You try to see what everybody's doing. So, within that community, everybody's making a sound decision that's best for one, their community as a school, as Galloway, and then as a community in the neighborhood. And so when our head of school decided that it was just time to shut down, he had to make that call. And so, like I said, it's just really hard for it hits home. And now we're sitting at almost 6 months where you have kids that haven't been in school. And this is probably the longest time that kids have never been in school once they've started. So, you can see some of the anxiety that some of these kids may have, some depression that may form, and especially with them wanting to be a part of sports. And so, it's really, obviously it's something that none of us have ever seen before. And we're all walking new steps every single day. And the thing is to be able to do it together. And I think a lot of it is just that discipline that, I think I have as an athlete. What I try to spill over to my girls is being disciplined in the small things. If it's wearing masks, if it's staying close to home, washing your hands, just understanding who we are around and just what overall numbers project. So I try to talk to them about the discipline of it all. We hadn't had a chance to be together. Myself and my coaching staff, we've done a good job we've had a couple of Zoom meetings, but I'm not one for quantity, I'm one for quality. So we've only had maybe 2 Zoom meetings. We're actually going to go for a hike this weekend. So we'll go out to a huge park and we'll hike up Amiclola Falls. So this will be the first time that I'll see them since March. So, it's one of those things where you have to kind of keep in touch with them to where the kids know that outside of their parents and their family, that you have an extended family in basketball and that they care. And so, just getting phone calls from the parents saying, thank you to our coaching staff for just either texting or calling, some kind of way of just keeping in contact with the girls. It's been really good for them. It's been really good for their morale.
Yeah, just so important to maintain those connections between coach and team and teammates. You've alluded to it a little bit. Let's go and talk about leadership and mentoring. Who have been some of the key mentors in your life, both personal and professional?
Well, I've got a lot of categories for that one. So I'll say when I first started for basketball, it was Teresa Edwards, and she's a 5-time Olympian, 3 golds, silver, and a bronze for basketball, one of the highly acclaimed basketball players in the world. So she actually helped me get my professional start as being a professional basketball player, the nuances of it. And a lot of people don't understand that it is more of a business than it is actually playing the game of basketball. And so as soon as you learn how to handle your money, how to handle people, how to be in meetings, we fly a lot, we travel a lot. So a lot of times at a certain point in time, you might need to create a will. A lot of people don't have wills at 30 years old, 28, 30 years old. So a lot of those things are important on the back end that we don't really see when we're younger and we're just playing basketball. So she was definitely a big influence in my life. Once I got into the world and the business acumen, I call her my second mother, my stepmother, Scarlett. She actually sat me down and just kind of showed me how to network. So her helping me just to network with certain people, just being outside in the Atlanta area, it's all about connections when you get into the business world. So she had a little bit to do with that. As far as mentoring from the AD level, Josh Bird was very good for me when we started out at Galloway, because he was the AD at Galloway before myself and Coach Tulo took over. So he was really helpful in learning how to navigate through parent emails, conversations, how to develop programs, and the different types of leaderships. I mean, we have the laissez-faire leadership, we have that anarchy leadership. So it's so many different types of leaderships, and me kind of forming into my own and how I want to be able to project that to our constituents in the Galloway community. So he was really big for me. And now I've reached out to a couple of ADs, in the city of Atlanta, to just kind of get their word. And I'll just call them and just say, hey, I just want to know what you're thinking. Like, what are we thinking in this process? So I talked to Jose Fernandez at Woodward Academy, Mike Emery at Paideia, Candace Mitchell and Jasper Jewell at APS. So I'm starting to really formulate those connections, and that's all attributed to all of my, mentors in each category that I've had to, kind of live through, for example.
Yeah. No, there's no question in our world of athletic administration, the networking is out there, and I think it's a very giving network. Mm-hmm. Tell our listeners about Bank Shot Basketball.
So Bank Shot Basketball was based basically on my professional career. So a lot of people don't realize when I first started playing in 2002, I showed my age, 2001 actually, in the WNBA, a minimum check was $28,000. And so a lot of people think, oh man, you become a professional athlete, like money's just gonna fall from the sky. It doesn't, especially for women's basketball. They've made a good contract coming in this year with a collective bargaining agreement. But before then, we have to compensate our income by going overseas. That's why you see so many young women, they go overseas because they can make up to 3 to 4 times the money that they will make here in the States. And so when I realized what was going on and the fallacy that a lot of these young kids have, the dreams that they have to become a professional athlete, professional artists, whatever the case may be, they don't realize the jobs that are just as lucrative on the side of professional athletes. And so my job was to be able to expose them to those careers alongside a professional athlete. So in actuality, it really had nothing to do with being a professional athlete or an entertainer. It was about those jobs that are less wear and tear on your body, right? And if you put the education beforehand and you understand where these finances go, then those small wheels are going to lead the big wheels, are going to lead you to a great retirement. So having these kids learn how to spend money. You don't need to buy a boat because you have the money for it. You don't need to buy 4 cars when you can only drive one at a time. You don't need to buy a big house and you're not going to live in it. So, those things like that. And we incorporated it into a regular old basketball camp day. So, we would have a timeout at camp and the kids would have kind of like little play wristbands. And then the color was the denomination of money. And so when they had a timeout, they would go around and I had my coaches be salesmen. And they would try to get these kids to go sell them a car, sell them a vacation, sell them a boat that goes with a house on the lake, shoes, all the gadgets, the PlayStations, the NBA 2K20, all of those things. We put those out there. And so, it was really eye-opening for a lot of kids. And it was a lot of fun for us because we also had a chance to learn what they were thinking.
Mm-hmm. No, I checked it out. Looks like a really, really cool program.
Thank you.
Want to pick your brain just for a little bit. Certainly this spring, And, in your area, Atlanta too, social issues, came to a forefront. What are some things that we can do as athletic administrators to do a better job? Okay. How can we do better?
Well, everybody's saying is have the conversation, but in order to have the conversation, you have to create the conversation. In order to create the conversation, you got to put yourself out there. And I think that at the time when everything happened and we had all the protests break out, most of my community is a white community. And so they're very welcoming. They're very loving. And at the same time, you have some of the young Black kids at our school who may have been confused. Even some of the kids of other races, they were confused. They didn't know why. They had never heard, why is this going on? And so my message, particularly to my program, to my kids, 8th grade and up, I wrote them an email and I included the parents on it, was understanding the why. So, at a time where it's, let's just say, the thing to do to go out and to protest and to be a part of the crowd, and we're still living in Corona, let's understand why we're going out. So I encourage my kids, and I attach links to it, understand the Women's Voting Rights Act. This is the reason why. Understand the Civil Rights Act. This is the reason why. Understand the march from Selma to Montgomery for Blacks to get voting rights in '69. So if we can research that why and understand the place that we are now, it will give them a better awareness. And I think all of it is just awareness. I've attributed the year 2020 to perfect vision. Everything is going to get exploited. Everything is going to get seen, and it's up to us to be able to see it. It is the year of clarity. And that's what I try to share with my kids. And anytime I get into a conversation with anyone that, wants to have that conversation, let's have it, and let's understand that our differences will be different. But we have to see perspective and not think that one side is right. It's all about perspective.
Appreciate you sharing. Let's shift gears. What are some of your favorite things about your job at Galloway? What gets you excited about coming to school in the morning?
I can honestly say, I think my dog's about to start barking. I can honestly say I probably worked 5 days in 8 years, honestly. And those times are when those days I've had to work, I really had to work. I just enjoy the energy. I'm a high energy person. So when I get on campus, I'm ready to go. Whatever challenges are there, I'm ready to take it. And then there are a lot of times that I have to force myself to sit down. But I think that the thing I love most about my job is that there's no monotony. I started work when I was young. My uncle owns a security business in Atlanta. And every morning I was in the office, 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock, I was in the office. That's how I learned how to make coffee. That's probably the reason why I drink coffee. But it was the same thing every day. So I knew early on I did not want to be in the office. Now I'm in the office, but I still, by 2 o'clock, I'm up and I'm ripping and running until about 7 or 8. Mm-hmm. So, there's never any monotony. You meet so many different people for so many spectrums. Personalities are different. One email is never the same from the next. So I appreciate that it's not monotonous.
Yeah, I still remember my dad told me when I was very young, and I ended up sharing it with my 3 kids. He said the secret to a happy life is finding something that you love to do and then convincing somebody else to pay you to do that. Sounds like you did that. I know I certainly did.
That's right. I had someone, Jim Hillbley told me, he said, where else can you go? You can be outside in the springtime in beautiful air for track, and you're sitting down watching kids run on track and you actually get paid for it.
Exactly. Well, Kiesha, this has just been wonderful. I could listen to you for a lot longer, but we've kind of come to the end of our program, and we always like to wrap up with what we call the Athletic Director's Toolbox. You are a veteran AD, and now you're getting ready to send a brand new athletic director out to their first job. Mm-hmm. You're going to be giving them a toolbox, but I'm only going to let you put 3 things in it. What is going to go in Kiesha Brown's toolbox?
Well, first one for sure is patience, if that's a thing. I'm going to put patience in there. I definitely like to put in there the last AD's past emails in there. So they'd be my past emails for the next AD. That was given to me in, a will, if you could say. So that's always helpful. And I think the third thing would just be the willingness and humility for continuous learning. Just never stop learning. I think I'll learn more now than I did in school. So just a willingness to continue to learn.
All right. Great advice. Well, that's it for our interview today. I encourage everyone to check out Bank Shot Basketball. And Kiesha, best of luck and thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Jake. I appreciate you having me.
All right. Come back for another episode of the Educational AD. Thanks for listening.